thank you, Mark. Let me just comment on that streetcar. That looks like it's at York and Avenue 50. Streetcar is going inbound to downtown. My dad picked my brother and I up about 1954 at Marmion Way, I think by Museum Drive, right there where the museum is, and Cafe de Adobe, he lives right there. And so I rode the inner line with my brother in the back, right in that same traffic segment. My dad became an operator, streetcar operator back in the early 40s. He enlisted after Pearl Harbor. My mother-to-be was from Kentucky. She came out here. My grandmother at the time lived in Mount Washington. So my mom was staying with her, my mom-to-be. So she became a streetcar operator. During the war, we had female streetcar operators. After the war, that stopped because, after all, that's men's work. Some women could stay. There were a few left when I heard on 1971, but not right now. My dad comes back after the war, goes to Division 3 over in Cypress Park. That's where they meet. Then we get married, and then I emerged in 1949, which is beginning to sound like a long time ago. And so I became a bus operator here in 1971. Worked here for quite a while. My wife-to-be, whom I didn't know at the time, became a bus operator in 71 as well. Her story is interesting. She applied for a job with Metro. She was a single parent as well. They offered her a clerical job, which she declined because bus operator paid more. They said, sorry, that's men's work. So she filed a federal complaint. A few months later, my wife's very tenacious. She still reminds me of the time she beat me out for a job in 1981. We did not like each other at the time. So she became the first post-World War II female operator. Later on in the history of Metro, the titles are there successively higher. First female dispatcher, manager, division manager, superintendent, and director of transportation. First woman in the history of Metro. So that's pretty cool history. Yeah. I was an operator here for a few years, then I left as the COO back in the 90s. So my roots here go way deep. So why is Metrolink important? Why would I go there? Well, first of all, they're in trouble. That's exciting. I like adrenaline. I like to do big things. But Metrolink is very important in Southern California. It relieves the I-5, the 91, 60 to 10, the Hollywood Freeway, the 134. It does a great deal for the counties in terms of getting cars off the street. Demographics of Metrolink riders is such that they almost one for one are cars off the street, off the freeway, pardon. So it's a wonderful service. I'm excited to be associated with it. There's a few issues here I'm going to talk about in a moment. I think people don't really have not fully appreciated the significance of Metrolink or the order of magnitude of what we do. There's a few charts here. The one closest to me shows passenger miles, annual passenger miles. We only carry, I don't know, 42, 45,000 a day. Doesn't sound like very much compared to other carriers, but the trips are very long. If you express the ridership in terms of passenger miles, we are the second busiest transit system in Southern California, only after Metro. Just for your information, that's OCJ. We have twice as many riders. Foothill, San Bernardino, LA Dot, Antelope Valley, RTA, Santa Clarita. You can combine Riverside and Orange County and San Bernardino. The passenger miles on Metro would exceed all of them combined. What we do is very significant. The next chart, there's a great deal of interest on the part of the counties to increase the fare box return. Percent of cost paid for by the rider on Metrolink. It's only 45%, so the counties are very troubled about that. But we see here Foothills at 29, the second highest. Metro, mid-20s. Most of them are in the low 20s. But they're pretty sure Metrolink ought to be higher than 45. The last chart is subsidy per passenger mile. But we are subsidized by the counties. This is Metrolink. So on a per mile basis, this is Antelope Valley. We have the lowest subsidy per passenger mile of any of the assistants in Southern California. Did you guys know that?
No.
We got plenty of troubles at Metrolink, but there's also a very good story and a very strong foundation to build on. I showed this to the counties today. They were so excited about it.
Taking the ammunition away from them.
Yeah. So we have some serious troubles. They aren't technically complex, but they're very, the problems are very deep. We have locomotives which are very old and they're failing. We have serious service reliability problems because of the old locomotives. By the way, what I will bring to Metrolink is a much more vigorous staff approach, much more vigorous. Metrolink went to a group called the TAC, TAC, a few months ago. I don't remember that, I wasn't very well, and said we should buy new locomotives, and the TAC said no. So we dropped that proposal and went to rehabbing these old locomotives. The problem is, on a business case basis, if you look at the cost of buying new locomotives against the cost of rehabbing, the new ones last 30 years, a rehab lasts 10 years. If you look at the business case, the dollar and cents business case, it is cheaper in the longer term to buy new locomotives than it is to rehab the old ones. Moreover, the new ones are cleaner. The air emissions are much less than the current locomotives, and the new ones would have more horsepower. Why is that important? Because the cars that we purchased have crash energy management capabilities, such that international, like the one in Oxnard, the cars don't collapse, they don't climb on top of each other and crush people. So they're much safer. The problem is they have lower capacity per car. That means the train consist length, the length of the trains will get longer. That means you've got to have a more powerful locomotive. Horsepower on the new ones, the new locomotives, is better, much better. So the higher speeds are better, pulling power is better, you can pull a longer train, one locomotive instead of having to go to two. And in Riverside and up in Antelope Valley, there are some steep grades. With a more powerful locomotive, we can run higher speeds on those steep grades. So the business case is compelling. We should buy new locomotives and figure out how to pay for them. I had a long meeting today with the county CEOs and the CFOs and the TAC, and basically went through all of this in some detail. And the counties, I believe, are going to agree that we ought to do this. As regards to ticket machines, we've had serious problems with ticket machines. I've heard they were losing $1 million a month. I don't know what the exact number is. I don't know if anybody really knows. But we have a lot of machine failures. You go to a station trying to buy a ticket, and all the machines are transit guys would say BO, bad order. So you can't pay for the ticket. There have been a few cases where the conductors wouldn't let people board the train because they didn't have a ticket. Well, that's terrible. It's our it's our goddamn machine. If it's failing, that's not the customer's fault. It's our fault. So we should let them ride for free. So the board passed a resolution directing that we buy all new TVMs, all new ticket vending machines. The problem is, over a 10 or so year period, we're going to spend a total of around $40 million on buying these ticket machines. This is basically 1990 technology. Now think about what your cell phone was like in 1990. Remember that? Yeah, I didn't have one. So, what we are proposing, we met with the counties again today on this, is, and the Metrolink board has approved this. My Metro and Metrolinks get messed up, and my Leahys and Bays get messed up. So if I misspeak, it's not on purpose. We met with the counties today and went over what we're doing to have remote ticketing. That is ticketing on a cell phone, where you can pay with a credit card and get a, whatever those square things are, like barcodes.
QR code.
Square things with barcodes. So we can pay, you can do that today. It's relatively easy. And a person that could board a train at a station with an optical reader, we don't have to buy all these new TVMs. Moreover, if we can move people off the TVMs, we save a lot of money on having to buy new ones. So we're looking at doing that. I'll tell you a funny story. Metrolink and I have to get used to each other. So a few months ago, I said to them, why don't we ask Metrolink, I asked Metro and Amtrak to sell our tickets, because Union Station has a bunch of ticket windows that belong to Metro. And the Los Angeles, which is the busiest one, more than half the stations are Amtrak stations. So why don't we ask them to sell our tickets? So I first said this in December, because I'm still with Los Angeles and not thinking about Metro at the time. I go, why don't you do that? And then I get appointed by the board, I think in February. So I supposed to said, why don't we look at Metro and Amtrak about ticket sales? So I show up, secondly, I'm here, so I say to them, did we speak to Metro about selling our tickets? And they say, oh yeah. So I go, what'd they say? They said no. So I said, who did you talk to? And they go, it was, who was it now? It was, they can't tell me. So I said, I know a few people. So then I said, you talked to Amtrak? Oh yeah, I talked to Amtrak. What'd they say? They said no. Who'd you talk to? Who was it now? It was, so, holy smokes. So they spent a couple 3 weeks documenting that they'd spoken to somebody. Wonderful. This really helps the passengers a lot. So I'll come back to the Los Angeles corridor, JPA, in a minute. But we call up Amtrak, and Amtrak refers us to Caltrans, because Caltrans runs the Amtrak Los Angeles service. Caltrans says no, because on certain days, like the last day before Christmas vacation, the trains are real crowded. And the stations are real crowded, so no, we can't do it because, once or twice a year, the stations are really crowded. So I'm telling the counties, we need to mobilize on this. This is unsatisfactory. So, as I said, me and the Metrolink people will have to adjust to each other. So we are looking at, we'll keep the TBMs out there. We may stop selling with cash because that leads to the machines being stolen and broken into and things like that. We'll be looking at that. We may try to put TBMs that allow them to keep cash with their location, which is securable, and I don't know. We're just at the beginning of this conversation. My point is here is that we're trying to do some things that would allow us to integrate the Metro fare system with Metrolink and Metro and the other counties in a way which facilitates much less expensive. So stay tuned on that. I think the future of Metrolink is very bright. I'm going to comment on that a little bit. I think that there is an inherent need for partnership between Metrolink and the counties. The counties need the service. But to provide the service, Metrolink needs some money. So rather than worry about whether Metrolink is independent from the counties or not, or whatever, that's just a hypothetical discussion with no consequences in merit or in merit. So what we ought to just recognize is that the counties and Metrolink are in a permanent state of mutual codependence. That means we have to work with them. That means we should give them draft board reports, draft analyses, and get their feedback. The cost of buying and the cost of support is participation, right? This is not rocket science. So we need to do a better job of bringing the county CEOs, the funding agencies, into our council. I don't know who wrote this, but it was illiterate. Okay.
You mentioned the counties a lot. San Diego County?
No.
Why not?
San Diego, dim and distant history. San Diego's not involved. They have a coaster down there. The Metrolink trains go down to Oceanside. We've had some dialogue for many years. I'll come back to that when I get to Los Angeles. It's coming right up. When I was CEO of Metro, we're talking about a sales tax measure in November of 16. And as CEO of Metro, I kind of have to be a little neutral and allow all this stuff to play out. And, you know, people to make their suggestions for projects and all this kind of stuff, because I can't be advocating for one area versus another, because I'm the CEO of Metro. But not now. So a little bit of inside baseball, but you'll get it really easily. To pass a sales tax measure, you must be able to demonstrate a geographically distributed benefit, right? Everybody has to benefit from the sales tax measure. That means Palmdale, that means San Gabriel Valley, everybody. Think about Metrolink. We have a system map that goes all over the place in Southern California, in Los Angeles County. We have service to Palmdale, which is not likely to get a subway, but they have Metrolink, sending on the East San Gabriel Valley. So I suggested to Metro staff a year ago, long before I thought about going to Metrolink, why don't we look at, since the stations exist, the rolling stock exists, the track exists, why don't we look at paying for and running midday service, more midday service on Metrolink, and late night service. I don't know if any of you take Amtrak or Metrolink, but you can't go to a Dodger game or a play or a concert in Los Angeles and take the train home, because at least in Orange County, the last southbound train is like 10 at night. Just a little bit too early. If you go to a Dodger game and take the train home, you have to leave in the 6th inning, which the way they've been playing now is probably a good thing. But, you know, we should have later night service. Metro is putting some really cool restaurants over up by tracks. Union Station will become a late night spot, and we should support it with later night service just like Metro does. Metro runs till midnight, 2 a.m. on the weekends. Let me talk about Los Angeles. So about 10 years ago, I'm down in Orange County. I'm still CEO down there, and I took a train down to Oceanside to meet some federal official. And I'm standing down there, and I see 2 trains standing next to each other. One is Metrolink, and the other one is Coaster. You guys are interested in transit, so you probably know this. Buses and trains and airplanes cost money by the minute. By the minute. So here's 2 trains sitting here, engines running, for 15 minutes. That's a lot of money we just spent for nothing, right? So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, we need to do a better job of coordinating these things. Moreover, when I moved up to LA, I took Metrolink and Amtrak for 4 years, and I began to see some of the things that were going on. If you're on a Metrolink train that's delayed, you know what the conductor will come on the PA and say? It's Amtrak is blocking us. If you're on an Amtrak train, I'm telling you what the conductor says. Beautiful music. Right. I wish I had a microphone. Can you hear it?
UCLA marching band?
You need to get your ears checked. So, you're on an Amtrak train, they're going Metrolink and vice versa. They don't coordinate. They see each other as competitors, rather than recognizing that both of those services are paid for by the taxpayers. The same taxpayers. The counties pay for Metrolink, and the state of California, Caltrans pays for Amtrak. They ought to work together. So 10 years ago, I called up Will Kempton and a Caltrans, Roger Snowball, and Metro about beginning a low sand initiative to give the low sand board, which has existed for 30 years, the responsibility of providing oversight.
Why himself?
Boy, oversight. I wish I knew how to turn that off. Although I'm enjoying the music so much, I don't want to. By the way, UCLA is on a roll, football-wise. They've beaten SC 4 of the last 16. They're quite proud of themselves. All right, so the whole point of the Low Sand Initiative with getting that JPA, or empowering the JPA to be more specific, is to bring those guys under local oversight. The point being to get to a time where we can have a Metrolink board and a Low Sand board sit down together and figure out how things can work together better for the taxpayers. And this takes us into the San Diego discussion. Same thing ought to happen. We ought to be having dialogue LoSan, by the way, will govern San Diego up to San Luis Obispo. We ought to be working together for the good of the taxpayers and the travelers. We ought to be creating synergy between Metrolink and Amtrak. This is so obvious, but if you knew how hard this discussion is to have with Metrolink and Amtrak, it's taken 10 years to get this thing passed. On the current schedule, on July 1, the LoSan board takes over the governance of Amtrak. That means that we don't have to go to Washington or Sacramento even to try to have a dialogue on creating coordination and synergy. That's a fundamental shift in how we make decisions. I'm very optimistic. It's not going to be easy. We ought to be, on the LoSan corridor, Amtrak and Metrolink Amtrak makes most of the Metrolink stops. We ought to be working together to get more riders out there, and therefore more money, more revenue, and for all the good things that we ought to do it for. Imagine in Manhattan. Can you imagine in Manhattan the last train being at 10:10 at night? We ought not to be satisfied with that. So we'll do that. There's a few things here Bart gave me. LoSan integration I just commented on. I'm optimistic. It isn't going to be easy. North San Diego is very difficult. When I was an North San Diego guy, he told me that Oceanside doesn't want Orange County coming down to Oceanside to stay in their hotels or even their restaurants. Anybody here believe that? If you run a hotel, you're going to say Orange County guys keep out. So we need to create synergy between these systems. In terms of ridership on Metrolink, it's been flat. I think we're dropping actually for a year or so. I think there's probably a few contributing causes. One is gasoline prices dropping so low. That certainly wouldn't have helped. Most Metrolink customers have access to an automobile, so lower gasoline prices could affect what they do. But in addition to that, we have had major service disruptions because of the locomotives I've just described and the TVMs, the ticket vending machines. So those things taken together and some of the things that go on with the conductors have led us to a situation where I think Metrolink customers are bailing out because they're unhappy with the quality of service. This is pretty obvious stuff. We need to get the new locomotives, we need to run reliable service, we need to keep the schedule. So we're working on doing that. Script. Script is the run-through tracks here at the station. Everybody's in favor of it. By the way, I've been in Metrolink for 5 weeks, so I pretty much know everything. So I'm going to run out of information here pretty quick. The run-through tracks are supported strongly by all the counties, Riverside, San Bernardino, Orange County, LA, Ventura. And the reason for that, do you guys know what the run-through tracks are? Familiar with that? Okay. So the throw of the yard is right over here, and the track's narrow there, so if there's a jam up over here, a derailment or something, if the throw gets jammed, then the station is blocked. You can't get in or out. Even on a good day, however, when it's not blocked, trains come in, they stop because it's a dead-end track. To get out, they got to go back up here and go around the yard, whether they're going southbound or northbound. With the run-through track, a train can come in from the north up here and then depart on the south end and swing over to the corridor. So it's estimated that increases the capacity of the station by about 42%, so it's really a good thing. PTC, we will submit our safety plan to the FRA in June, late June. Our goal is to have PTC fully up and functional by the end of the calendar year. That will make us the first railroad that has, in the nation, that has PTC. As I'm sure you know, this all emerged from the Chatsworth accident, I think it was in 2005. This was a very hard battle. We spent a lot of money on PTC. I, with LA at the time, went to DC a number of times with Metrolink to support the PTC initiative in Congress or with the trade association, APTA, American Transportation Association. We were opposed by all of the Northeast railroads, all of them, because they objected to the idea of the additional cost of PTC. It does cost money. Then there was the fatal accident up in New York, and that began to shift. The other day it began to shift again with the accident in Philadelphia, which would not have occurred had PTC been on there because there would have been speed controls on that segment. So, you know, there's a great push from the other systems to defer the deadline for implementing PTC. Metrolink does not support that, Metro doesn't support it, nor do the other local counties. In fact, there's a move to increase the liability cap for railroads when there's an accident. We will argue that the liability cap should be increased, but only for those railroads that don't have PTC. You should create a financial incentive in favor of the investment in PTC. So we're going back to DC in a few weeks to talk about that some more. We're not in favor of the delay. Senator Boxer and Senator Feinstein have been very supportive and very helpful, but it's been a really tough battle. There's a bunch of issues on here on sightings and things like that, and I don't know enough about it to comment. I know we are working with Bob Hope Airport to get a station on the Antelope Valley line. I don't know what the timetable is, but it should happen. Let me comment on fares. We're just beginning a fare structure review. I don't like the fare system at all because it's designed to deliberately discourage short trips. Let me tell you a story about this. When I was in Orange County, the Angels approached me about doing the pregame show from a bar in Fullerton. Fullerton is the first station from north. It's about a 7-minute ride. And the pregame show will be on the radio, and then the announcers will board the train and go to Anaheim Stadium. We'll be on the big screen, we'll be on the radio. Second biggest market. All we have to do is sell $201 tickets from Fullerton. Now, on a southbound trip on that line, which I've ridden hundreds and hundreds of times, they always disgorge a couple hundred people at Fullerton. Every trip, every night. So they have room. So I go to Metrolink, I'm with OCT at the time, I go to Metrolink and say, how about this? We'll be on the TV and the radio, and you get $200. So they say, yeah, but we're losing $4.50 per ticket because the normal fare is $5.50. We're losing $4.50 per ticket. Well, no, you're not, because they're not taking it today because it's a 7-minute ride. Then they say, well, they're all going to go upstairs and take the seats of the long distance travelers. No, they're not. They're going to be on the train for 7 minutes. Besides that, the long distance guys are already up there. They already have the seats occupied. So Metrolink agrees finally. So I go to Amtrak and say, how about it? And they say no. You'll never guess the reason. Does anybody here ride Amtrak? So, you know, if you buy
It's important to take the ticket.
that would be the rational answer. They say, if you buy a ticket at an Amtrak ticket window, you show them a credit card and a second document, a driver's license. Now, if you buy the same ticket outside the door at the ticket machine, you don't have to show a driver's license. So shall we say there's a hole in the system? If you have a pass, you don't have to show your driver's license. So we say, how about Amtrak? There's 2 northbound trains post-game, and you can get $200 a game, and you get to be on the big screen. It's going to be great. How about it? They say no, because at that hour of the night, we don't have anybody there to check their driver's licenses. So I say, well, that's sensible because, as we all know, terrorists never blow up trains on the way to the game. They only blow up post-game trains. So we beg and cajole so they agree to 1 game in that homestand. 1 game. The next homestand, 1 game. They're going to Washington to ask DC if they could do this. So then after two homestands and 2 games, the Angels bail out. So we refuse to accept a chance to market our system in the second biggest media market in the country. So you know my goal would be to get that changed. We ought to be doing things that are fun on Metrolink that people are going to, that will draw them to ride the system. With that, maybe I'll stop. questions? Yes, sir.
Art, Mark Hardiman from Buffalo Airport. I don't have so much of a question as I wanted to extend my own personal congratulations and welcome to this position. I know I speak for myself personally and for Dan Fager, our executive director. We've enjoyed the partnership that we've had with you over the past 4 years in your previous role, and look forward very much to this next chapter. I know we've got a lot of intermodal connectivity opportunities at Buffalo Airport, and look forward to being able to work with you and capitalize on.
This is really cool, so there'll be a station on both sides of the airport.
Correct.
So no matter what line you're on, you can get off and catch a plane.
That
By the way,
must be real.
maybe, I hope so. One of the things that we'll be doing in a few months is the Metro Board action, which is to experiment with reduced fares, 25% off on the Antelope Valley line only, but $2 between stations. So from Burbank to LA would be $4, from Glendale to LA would be only $2. Right now, the fare system is designed to discourage that. From the airport, it's $6. So I think there's some really cool things here. By the way, don't forget, there's a thing in the fare structure at Metrolink, I just learned about this a few days ago, called a system access fee. And the system access fee is designed to discourage short trips by making the shorter trips more expensive than the longer trips. So it is designed on purpose to keep people off the trains. That seems to me counterproductive to the goals of higher ridership and higher revenue. If you could take a train from Glendale into Los Angeles for a little bit of money, or from Fulton into LA for $4 instead of $7 or $8, you might as well do it. Hopefully we get more money. Yes, sir. You had.
Yeah, I was just wondering, since tap cards came into Metro on your watch, I wonder if there's any way to use tap cards, the tap card system, as a way to use some of the device.
Tap cards did not come into my watch. That system was designed without any input from me. So we are talking to Metro, about making a compatible system. It's relatively easy for us to sell tickets remotely through a handheld, but that doesn't work on the tap system. Both boards and both organizations want a compatible system. Some people would say, well, you just have a Metrolink pass and a Metro pass, but that's two cards. That doesn't excite anybody. Let's get a compatible system. So we're looking at optical scanners of some kind that would allow compatibility between Metrolink and the other systems. That doesn't work on Metro, however, because they don't have optical scanners. So we'll be talking with them about putting optical scanners at their subway stations. And maybe that raises an issue about putting optical scanners on 2,200 buses or 4,000 buses throughout the service area. So maybe at the stations where there's a bus interface, we put some kind of a reader as you leave the station, so you scan your barcode, your square barcode, and then get some kind of a receipt you can show the bus operator so he knows you paid the fare. So we're trying to get to compatibility. So I'm going to tell you, this is a funny story about Metro and Metrolink and organizational proudness. So in January, I'm still with Metro, but I'm going to go to Metro. So I meet with Metrolink staff and Metro staff, and I say, could you guys talk to each other and figure out how to get compatible fare systems? They go, okay. So they start meeting. They meet a month or two. So I meet with them, and I go, did you meet? I go, oh, yeah, they met. I go, did you figure out a compatible fare system? They go, oh, no. The task was to meet. Well, that's not satisfactory. So we're back to the drawing boards. So I think they may have a chance to really revolutionize how we collect fares on Metrolink and make it easier for the customer. 1 second. Yes, sir.
Oh, I just had a quick question related to talking about the system, but in terms of getting more riders on, or are we talking, also going to talk about station area planning around the Metrolink station to really make them
Sure.
long-term assets?
Most of the counties will do that rather than Metrolink, but we should certainly do that. Makes a great deal of sense, right? Yes, sir.
Art, David Cameron, Teamsters Rep. Caltrain is electrifying for the proposed blended system on high-speed rail. Plan calls for a blended system with Metrolink. What's the status of that, and where do you see that going?
It's not in the front burner right now, but it's certainly something we've had some initial talks about. I met with High Speed a few days ago, and I've suggested to them that we should convene a group to include Metrolink, Amtrak, High Speed Rail, Metro, maybe SCAG, I don't know. And we should talk about what happens if High Speed gets here. What really happens? Let's assume that we had a relatively high-speed trip from LA to the Bay Area. What happens to a coaster? Does it still run? Does it still exist? If High Speed goes to Anaheim, what do we do with Amtrak then? Does it still go to Anaheim, or does it stop at Anaheim on the northbound trip? I don't know the answers. If we get High Speed out to San Gabriel Valley, should Amtrak still go out there? Again, I don't know the answers, but we're not even talking about that. We ought to sit down and try to figure out how to create synergy. Along with that, we ought to talk about technical compatibility and ask ourselves, would we ever intend to electrify the tracks down here? We've certainly, Metro has gotten some pretty good sums of money from high-speed rail. That money is being used for grade separations, which are compatible with higher speed trains, also on the Scripps project over here. But we really need to, someone in the governor's office, or Secretary of Transportation, should convene something where we really get ourselves talking and working together, assuming these things happen. We should not have Metrolink and Amtrak and high speed all playing each independently from the other. And then that applies to routes, applies to fares, applies to power structures, and everything else. Yes, sir.
Yeah. You mentioned about the fare structure for Metrolink being a problem. Up until about 3 years ago, passengers who traveled from a long way away, 3 days a week to come here, had a fare form that worked very nicely for 10 credit. And then that was done away with because of quote abuse, but I can't see any evidence that any other kind of form of ticket is being abused any less than that.
We're talking about bringing it back. There's a great deal of interest in that. Although we're also talking about not just selling it Amtrak and Metro, but giving the conductors validation cards that could do ticket sales from the train if the TVMs are broken or whatever.
Yeah.
But with a penalty. If you pay cash, if you buy your ticket on an Amtrak train, there's about a 50% penalty, because that's suboptimal.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to look at all options to make sure we're collecting fares, and we're going to try to get to the point with optical scanners of being able to do 100% fare checking, which we're not doing today. Yes, sir.
What impact will the extension to the Paris Valley line, what impact will that have? That's going to open up in this calendar year, I think.
Yeah, December. What do you like?
I mean, in terms of ridership, et cetera, do you have any idea?
I don't. I know we've had some initial discussions about how we preview the line, take journalists out there. I don't know what the ridership projections are. Riverside County is very optimistic. They'll have a lot of ridership out there. Both of those lines, San Bernardino and Riverside, are very well used. So I would expect that would be the same. That's a tough drive trying to come in from out there. We've also had some discussion. I'm now into blue sky territory. Riverside would like to get some service out to Indio and Palm Springs. So I've suggested that we should convene a working group of all the concerned parties and look at service from Union Station to Ontario Airport to San Bernardino to, say, Redlands, Palm Springs, and Indio. And maybe have at least a train in the morning and a train in the afternoon. Because the drive is just miserable, right? There could be some opportunities there, so we're going to have that dialogue. Yes, sir.
I can't tell you how pleased I am to hear a whole bunch of the things you're saying, and I was, delighted when you came in to the position. Enjoyed working with you for many years.
Sure.
But I was particularly pleased to hear you talking about the late night service, because one of my passions when I was on the sandbag board for years had been to get late night service. And I could never get it done, and finally, after I had to go off the board when I was elected to the assembly, finally, they got the service, an 11 o'clock train, and this year, it was cut back because of the funding problems, and instead of having 21 round trips every weekday on the San Bernardino line, it's 19 round trips, a 10% cutback, and the last train is 9:30 instead of 11 something, which screws up those Dodger games. So I'm curious as to what your perspective is from recognizing just 5 weeks so far, but my perception was that there was not enough communication going on between Sandbag and SCRRA staff on how to resolve the problems that each side was portraying in being able to deal with paying for the service. And so I'd be interested if you have any perspectives yet on that. And I was also delighted that you make reference to the Ontario airport, because there are a group of us who are very strongly interested in pursuing that, including former San Marino County resident Denny Zane over there. And we are very much interested in pushing for it, but it'll require greater frequency for people to use it to get to
Yeah, you know, I don't know the details of that. I was fortunate, I was with Orange in LA for 14 years. They had 14 years I had monthly meetings with Metrolink. But I had other stuff to do, so I can't say I was intensely involved, but I was superficially involved at least. I think that in the last 4 years, Metrolink has not been as engaged with the counties as it should have been. I think I mentioned a while ago they should be more disclosing or sharing of information. So San Bernardino was unhappy with the budget proposal, so kind of got angry about it, and so they just arbitrarily cut 3% off the contribution, and that's what led to the cuts. So what I hope we can do is get past that. What I'd like to do is to get to just obvious ways of doing business. When we do something, there ought to be an MOU that describes what you're going to pay and what you're going to get. Historically, Metrolink doesn't have any of that. So there's a dialogue 5 or 10 years ago, and someone said something, someone said something else. So we go off and embark on a program with no documentation as to how it's going to be paid for or what we were obliged to provide. That's not a good way to do business. So we need to introduce better business practices within Metrolink and amongst Metrolink and other counties. And I hope we get to the point where we put together a business plan that allows us to restore those late night trains. There's a lot of stuff going on downtown and everywhere, all over Southern California, a lot of stuff going on. And we ought to be able to access that and provide a beneficial service. Yes, sir, in back.
Hey, Art, thank you so much for your time. And Bart, thanks for having us. I live in Rancho Cucamonga, so I take the train 3 times a week minimum. So a lot of these things that you're sharing with us on the late night trains, the service, the machines not working, I'm definitely a part of that. I enjoy the train. It gives me an opportunity to truly catch up with a lot of work. An hour, one way or the other. Is it a little bit more affordable? Probably to take the car, absolutely. But I think what it allows me to be more productive during the day. What I do find myself is the development of possible either improvements of the lines that are currently going, specifically with the San Bernardino line. It's a huge issue with the train actually breaking down. A lot of locomotives, I've frequently been going through issues like that recently. I don't know what it's been. It's very frequent. But I think what we find ourselves a lot of times, and a lot of the delays, is with the passing trains. So is there some developments and some plans in development to increase or widen the lanes or the right-of-ways for the trains?
Well, I think you're right. There's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. Over time, for the last 10 years I know of, there's been a lot of construction of double tracks and triple tracks. That all needs to get done. It all needs to continue. You know what a single track is? You know
Yes, sir.
The jargon? Okay. Single track is very fragile because if someone's on that track, you can't enter it. That leads to, especially when you have freight trains on the same right of way.
Is there designated right-of-way already though to
Sure.
increase it?
Each carrier has so many slots, but during the course of the day, if something goes wrong, it depends who's making the decision about which train goes first.
Right.
The freight snatchers want to have their train go first because they're going to pay penalties if that train is late. We, of course, think that the passenger train ought to go first. So I just met some people today. We're going to start a dialogue with the freights. There's some certain things they want and certain things we want. let's sit down and have a business discussion about a number of issues, including what happens when there's a delay and what can we do to try to keep the trains on schedule. You know, a 20-minute delay of a passenger train to San Bernardino is serious. If the freight's delayed 20 minutes, he's got 3,000 miles to catch up with it. You know, we don't. So we'll pursue that. Well, stay tuned.
Thank you.
Yes, hi, Greg.
So Art, I was appreciated your characterization of the system as being a really region-wide, county-wide system, and that plays very well into the politics of potential ballot measures. And so there's a number of folks who would like to see a carve-out for Metrolink in any ballot measure that might go forward here in Los Angeles County. So imagining that happens, I would like to have some idea what you might regard as priorities for investment. And particularly, though, taken with your comment about the San Bernardino line and the Ontario Airport connection, because that always looked to me rather like a fascinating opportunity. That the express service that happens there now is pretty competitive with the flyaway from LAX, and that if we had more robust express service on that line and a linkage into the airport, you could really have an economic driver out there, especially with downtown Los Angeles becoming a more robust workplace in the next couple of decades. So I'd love to hear your comments on all of that.
We should get together and talk about all that you just said. I don't disagree with any point you've made. I think there's some great opportunities at Ontario Airport. San Bernardino feels the same way. Ray Wolf is the CEO out there. He feels exactly the same way when we're looking at doing that. They understand they would have to have some kind of connection from the train station up to the airport. So that's relatively easy.
So Art, just apropos of that, I was looking at the report about the possible connection of Metrolink into Ontario Airport and the alternatives. And it struck me that the alternatives analysis made no reference to the opportunity for ridership into Los Angeles, into downtown Los Angeles. It all talked about kind of local marketplace. And this whole analytic judgment then about what comes first, the train or the airport, or what have you, was really, I think, distorted as a consequence of not seeing here as an opportunity. So I suggest that you want to take a look at that and see if we can remedy that deficiency.
Okay, let's talk more about the sales tax measure. Yes, Dan. Sure.
Yes, I'd like to go back to the comments about more late night service for Metrolink. I think everybody in the room knows that for several years, Metro has added 2 more hours of late night service on Friday night and Saturday night for all the rail system plus the Orange Line. As a personal user of that service, I live in the San Fernando Valley. You can see large riderships, for example, getting off at 1 a.m. at North Hollywood, maybe 400 people, half of whom walk across the street to get the Orange Line, which also runs to 2 a.m. So there's a definite success there in adding 2 hours of service, late night service on all the rail systems. Most of the lines stop normally at 12 midnight. And there's a separate sign in every station that shows what it is on Friday night and Saturday night, and it runs to 2 a.m. It's been a very, very definite success in terms of ridership.
Thank you. That was initiated based on top-down executive force. Metro did not want to do that. But to me, it's market development. You know, that's what you're doing. You're developing ridership and marketing. I also asked them in the later night service with some colorful language. They're running, I forget, you know, time like at 9 o'clock at night, Metro's running a 4-car train on a 20-minute headway, which is pretty lousy. So I said, why don't you run 2-car trains at a 10-minute headway? Same number of trains, hire a few operators, and you can run twice as much service with the same number of cars. You know, what that really reflects is the transit system ought to think about what's convenient to the customers and what do you do in terms of market development. By the way, I see a few people here might be millennials. I like millennials because they're all going to be underachiever, low-income transit users. It's market development, guys.
I love seniors.
Here.
There's been some real progress in ridership. If you take a view back 20 years, what has to happen for there to be a quantum leap forward in ridership over the next decade or two?
Well, in the short term, Metrolink needs to get its house in order in terms of reliable service and reliable machines. I think that we should be looking at increased service to make it more convenient. This whole issue of better cooperation with Metrolink and Amtrak, maybe co-marketing services like that. I think that we can do a better job of marketing all the services, maybe tying in an Amtrak, Metrolink train with a shuttle bus up at Dodger Stadium. There's no rocket science here. It's marketing, it's solid operations, it's customer relations. I think we probably should do something on some lines about security. We don't have a lot of crime, but we have people behaving in ways which seems dangerous, and that discourages ridership, particularly in the evening time.
This is just an imaginary question to echo the future development. The current Metrolink network is a radio all come to a Union Station. How about developing additional routes to make the radio become a web? For instance, just Fullerton go north to pick up Riverside line, San Bernardino line in San Gabriel Valley, then turn to Burbank to connect to the north line to make another bypass route that may be a successful attraction for additional ridership.
There's Metro's doing some things that would lead to that same thing. The Crenshaw line will run from the Expo line down to the Green Line, someday go south, probably into Long Beach. Someday it will go north, maybe the West Hollywood, I don't know where Hollywood, and hook up with the subway or on Wilshire Boulevard. At some point, those things will begin to happen. There's discussion now about a train that would run from the Pasadena Gold Line over to North Hollywood. That's very early in the discussion. There's early development discussion about a train from Westwood under the mountains over to Van Nuys. I don't know if Metrolink will do it, but Metro will. Yeah.
Most of the stations along the Metrolink corridor are pretty bare and industrial in nature with large parking lots and so on. They kind of lack a kind of synergy that should exist around stations. Now with increased ridership and positive control and more trains and so on, is Metrolink thinking of doing TODs and bridges across the tracks and more safety and more lit up areas and so on?
As regards to safety issues, absolutely. The TOD stuff will involve the counties in the host cities, not the Metro. We are talking about what we can do to enhance the customer experience. I want to look at having a kiosk over at the station somewhere, such that you can buy a coffee or maybe a bottle of Arrogant Bastard Ale, as you can on the Amtrak trains. I would charge a heavy premium, and as Amtrak does, I would discourage people bringing their 12-packs onto the trains. For 4 years, I would take Metrolink or Amtrak back to Orange County when I still lived down there. There's a 510 Amtrak that I would ride a few times a week, and there's a bunch of regulars who ride it. If it's late, they're all tracking the location of the train. So there's a 540 Metrolink. So about 5:25 they're beginning to get nervous. Should they wait for Metrolink or Amtrak, should they go on over to Metrolink? And they prefer Amtrak because they sell beer and wine on the train. So we have to look at some passenger amenities and then there's a lot to evaluate. Does it create problems, blah, blah, blah. We should do that. We should consider what we can do to make it a more friendly experience, a more pleasant experience, but to be determined.
Couple things. First off, I'm really excited about the Paris Valley line because I've always wanted to go to the OERM and I don't drive. and currently, until this Paris Valley line opens, there's no train to the train museum, which is the most insulting thing of all. You know, that'd be like no road to the car museum. What? You know? But if you want to attract millennials, you need two things. You need more outlets on the trains, and you need Wi-Fi, because we live on Wi-Fi. That's how we do what we do. That's how we keep everybody's social media pages running, because they don't know how to run, because because people don't know how to run their own Twitter account, so we have to. So those are, I love the Metrolink, but I took the Metrolink to Anaheim, and I felt like I was kind of in a bind, because I had all this stuff to look up for a convention I was going to, but I had to do it all on my tablet, and it's much more comfortable to do it on the laptop. So yeah, if you're gonna buy new cars, please put in some Wi-Fi and some more outlets, because that makes all the difference in the world.
So sorry. We've looked at, before I got here, looked at Wi-Fi. They estimate $10 or $12 million. So I've suggested to Metrolink staff to look at, Amtrak has Wi-Fi on the Los Angeles. So why don't we figure out how we can access the Amtrak Wi-Fi? That's under evaluation right now. I don't know what the outcome will be. That doesn't take care of going to Paris Valley. But I agree with you. I think those sorts of amenities make a great deal of difference about the decisions that we're going to be making. We should make it as pleasant and as welcoming an experience as we can. By the way, my eldest son is 36, and he asked me a few years ago, he goes, Dad, when you were in high school or college, how did you meet somebody? You call them up and you say, I'll meet you at a certain place at a certain time, and then you do it. And he goes, that's really weird.
Just in terms of Wi-Fi, don't use Amtrak as a model.
Yeah.
It does not work.
Great. Their Wi-Fi sucks.
Yeah, yes, sir. Your hand up?
Yeah. Kind of historically, Metrolink has been focused on the into downtown LA in the morning, out to the suburbs in the afternoon type commute, which is not necessarily a great fit for an LA region. Do you see any kind of potential for options that would change that, such as reverse commute, like to centers in Orange County, like Santa Ana or Irvine? Or also, we have these two lines in the San Fernando Valley that need better service.
Yep.
And there's not a lot of trains on the San Fernando Valley lines during the day, not a lot of stations. See any potential on those issues?
Sure. Orange County has pretty good directional flow both directions between AM and the PM. I'm not so familiar with the San Fernando Valley schedules, but certainly the idea of having more midday trains, off-peak trains, and late-night trains, as we discussed, all add to making the train a more attractive option. And I'll give you an analogy. When my wife used to live in Cleveland, so I took the train to a few Indians games. And there's people riding the train in the evening to the game who are not regular users. But that service is a marketing tool. After they do it, that's the way they're introducing them into the system. That's, by the way, that's what the Dodger Shuttle is. You want to know what I say to college kids about the Dodger Shuttle? I will tell them, in your career, you'll come across problems and you'll identify 2 or 3 ways around the barn. Because in your head, you have built-in assumptions and parameters that blind you. There's in fact 1,000 options around the barn. You just can't see them. So when I was new at Metro, the Dodgers approached me about running a shuttle bus from the station to the stadium. They had asked my predecessor, and he said no, because if you run point-to-point service, that's a charter, and transit systems are not allowed by law to run charters. So the Dodgers asked me if I would do it, and I said yes. So how did I do that?
At a bus stop. You had to
At a bus stop. Cheater, you knew that. We added a bus stop, put a bus stop at Broadway. So now it's not point to point. Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm going to disagree with you just a little bit, and maybe I misunderstood what you said, but I live 2 blocks from the Fullerton train station, and I would have loved to take a train here tonight. But my options were to leave, I think, at 7:30 on the last Metrolink, or wait till 10:10 for the last Amtrak to get back to Fullerton. So I think
That's what I said.
oh, see, I thought you said that to Orange County was better, but to Orange County for.
During the rush.
Right, that's what I'm saying, maybe up till 5 o'clock it's better in both directions, but at night I find it a challenge to get to LA and back.
Completely agree.
Okay.
One time I had a meeting here at night, and I was still with Metro, and I had access to a car, Metro called Loomis. So I had a night meeting, so I was gonna drive this unit home in Orange County. So I go to start it, and I didn't drive it very often, so the battery's dead. So I go back up against the 10:10, there was a slight delay. So I got home at 1 o'clock at night. So, you know, normal people won't do that again, right? So there needs to be, you know, frequent service even up until midnight, not just on train.
Well, that's the challenge, like you'll try to use a train for a while, and then you just give up.
Yeah.
You know, you stop looking as an option, and I'm a little bit familiar with Chicago Metro, and most of the Metro trains seem to run every hour in the slow period, at least you know, they slow down to every hour headway, and it's usually a half hour better for most of the day. And it'd be great if Metrolink could get there someday.
I agree with you.
But I think you have to like, not wait for the customers to pay for it, you have to put the train service out, and then it builds up.
If you build it, they'll come.
Did you grow up here?
No, grew up in Massachusetts.
I did, and my dad was from Chicago, and he would say, we should hope that LA is never like New York or Chicago. Well, it's not, but in the world, it's a big city. But people who lived, if you were here, into the 70s and into the 80s, we would say it's not a big city, it's a big village. I don't think they began to think of it as a big city until maybe the '84 Olympics, somewhere around there. When the Blue Line opened up on July 14th, 1990, after that date, people would say, we don't need these things. That's all changed. Nobody today says this is not a big city. Everybody today accepts and understands that the amenities which are important in big cities around the world are important in Los Angeles. Now we're making a heavy investment, but we're way behind the 8 ball. So it's going to take a while to catch up. The Metrolink service is only 25 years old. It's hard to believe. 25 years ago, we didn't have any trains. So what looks like snail's pace to some looks like to me a rapid rush forward. You know, we had no trains 25 years ago today. But the point's accepted. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Early on in your tenure at Metro, you made a similar presentation to this group. And one of the, I think, admirable steps you were saying you were taking then was to require your senior managers at Metro to take public transportation so that they got a first-hand taste of what the customers have to face, and could really appreciate that. And I was wondering, given your comments here about some of the attitudes among senior management at Metro, if you were thinking of instituting the same policy.
Well, actually, I'm pleased that the guys in Metrolink operations are very attuned to what the issues that you're raising. They ride a lot. I won't say that about all the executives. They ride a lot. I will be riding. I've told the counties I want meetings, monthly meetings, all over the place with their board members and stuff and others. I want it around the train schedule. So I want to go out and ride the service and see the things that happen. Because unless you're out there, you can't imagine. By the way, I also told the executives, this is a horrible story. The people in this building, I don't know about Metro, but Metro are white-collar workers. They don't understand blue-collar workers. So I would say to them, look, when you see an operator or mechanic, just say hello to them. They're human beings. If you just said hi, that might make them feel good. That sounds easy, but it's not so easy. Yes, sir.
What's the outlook for new locomotives and new passenger cars? I have a friend who uses the Riverside line, and he just says the cars are filthy.
Well, in the budget, we're putting in additional money for cleanliness. I've been here 5 weeks, so I can't recite a lot that's in the budget. But we're putting in additional money for cleanliness, of the cars. I hope to go to the board in no later than August and get approval to go out and buy 17 new locomotives to replace some of those that are failing. So,
What about passenger cars? Or do we have enough now?
no, we have, as some of the older cars that have been mothballed, we're gonna bring, I think it's 15 or so of them back into service, at least until we buy some more rail cars. The new cars have energy crash management capabilities, but they're much safer. That's why they're on the end of each train, and the old cars are in the middle. But no, we're gonna have to buy some cars. I don't know exactly what the date will be, but we'll have to.
From the time we order the locomotives, how long until we actually get it?
It's a year and a half or 2 years, something like that. It's a long time. It's not like buying a Chevrolet. Yes, sir.
Quick question. You were talking about electrification and high-speed rail, and you were also talking about locomotives that you're considering purchasing now. Are you going to get to a situation where you buy a bunch of locomotives and then you electrify and then you will want to replace them with electric engines?
Well, we would make sure that the design of the overhead wire or whatever it was, the power distribution system is compatible with the locomotives that would exist that we own at that time. I would not anticipate that we would retire those locomotives early. We would just begin to convert new purchases into the new technology.
Okay.
And by the way, the regulators change the air emission requirements on buses and trains, but they never make you get rid of old equipment because that's taxpayers' money. It doesn't make any sense to retire an asset early because of a change or improvement in design.
Okay.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Bart. Thank you for having me.
Well,
I probably have
I really enjoyed everybody in the audience with lots of good questions, and because one day I'll sit down and have lunch with Art, and some of the things that I'm thinking about here is that Art understands how we run a bus out from somewhere in Eagle Rock or somewhere, and it goes through downtown and goes back out 3rd Street or 6th Street or something like that. When the Metrolink system was designed, the questions have been asked this way. Everything radiates into downtown Los Angeles. We once did a story how we wanted to go skiing at Mount Waterman. You could take the train from Silmar, get to Union Station, the train to San Bernardino leaves 5 minutes before the train from Silmar gets it. Then it goes to Cal State Los Angeles and sits for 15 minutes to wait for a pass. And then eventually you get out to where you can transfer and take the skiing up to Mount Waterman. But there's all sorts of situations like that. Also with the script project, the conceptual idea is that you could have the trains follow the freeway. In other words, if somebody works in Tustin and lives in Northridge, you park in Northridge, you get the train, and it continues, whether it's the crew or the consus stays the same, the crew might change at Union, but the train continues down and you can take a job in Tustin, and the nighttime train hits Tustin and gets back to Northridge, and somehow it becomes a series of through corridors. And we actually did numbers showing that any Amtrak train that goes from San Luis Obispo or Santa Barbara through to San Diego has 20 to 25% more revenue because it's got more station pairs and more places for people to go. But with the script project, then it'll be like 5 or 8 years, and what we're thinking, and probably should have the discussion with you, is we could start thinking about Metrolink as a freeway, and you could come from Orange County to the San Fernando Valley. One time I was working with Denny Zane, and a whole bunch of people that work with Denny Zane have offices in Burbank. The reason they couldn't take the train, they get on the train at Rancho Cucamonga or Rialto, but the train to Burbank, their office was a block away from the train station, was they'd have to wait for a half hour because the trains didn't intersect properly. So with a change in thinking, revenues that have been really difficult to obtain become a change because people can buy tickets and have a through ridership. And they always argue about the crews and everything else, but you know there's always solutions to figure this out. It's making the service look like a freeway rather than everything to downtown Los Angeles. There's just something to think about. Because the script eventually will let that happen, but it isn't the idea of sending the train out from Chatsworth, looping around and coming back. It's making the network work. So lots of revenue opportunities and ways to make the system work. And I'm really glad that it came down, because you're one of the guys that actually knows how to talk to people. And one day I'll wait for the day that you arm wrestle and beat Matt Tucker, and we can see trains going from Riverside to San Diego on the commuter runs, because there's 20% revenue out there, and trains from San Diego getting out to either Tustin or Fullerton or to Riverside. So that would be a dream to see the through service and benefit the taxpayers. But that's the point, working for the taxpayers. So I want to thank Art. We'll have him back for a progress report, I guess, next year. And everybody give him a big round, please.